Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. A while ago I talked about Kagero Deception 2, and this time I wanted to talk about Deception 3, because it's kind of a mess, and I like it because it still plays like Deception 2, but yeah, the story's weird. Let's get into it. So this story is just an absolute mess. The opening cutscene shows what I believe is your main character, as well as Albert and another girl getting kidnapped somewhere. I have no idea where. This doesn't track with anything else that's going on in the game, and it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You get kidnapped in this scene, and then it's never brought up again. Once you get to the main game, your character gets kidnapped again, but this time she's a lot older. She gets kidnapped and taken to this little island nation and brought before the king. She's standing there along with her mother and her sister. For some reason, her mother and sister get killed off, and then you get thrown into a dungeon where you meet this little kid named Marco who gives you a weird gem that magically gives you the power to control traps. None of that none of that is ever really explained as to just why you can use traps or how that little gem works. You then go on a series of missions in order to do just random things. People that you meet get off-screen to death. Like, just Marco dies, Albert dies, Cecilia dies. Everyone that interacts with your character ends up dying in some way in this game, with the exception of one person at the end. And even then, it's kind of like, I don't understand what happened. So at some point in the game, you find out that there are these 12 stones in the kingdom that magically give some kind of a power to someone. Your main character has one of these stones, or like the core stone or legendary stone, something. I don't really understand it. The queen wants it though. So the queen gets this stone from you. And then you kill the queen, the stone falls into a fire and is mysteriously gone from there. And then another character shows up and tells you everything's okay, and then you pick up a princess and then you leave. I wish I could give you like a better explanation of just why all of these things happen, but none of it really makes any sense. And I feel like I would have to play through this game multiple times and choose all the different dialogue routes just to have a decent idea of what's supposed to be happening in the overall story. But I'm going to tell you none of that actually matters. What is going to matter in this is your character runs around in different castles and, sets traps and lures people into them and kills those people. That's all that really matters here. Oh, I should mention this. If you have played the second game, or you're one of the few people who've watched my video on the second game, you might remember the time nodes, Millennia, those characters from the first game. If you don't remember them, don't worry, because none of them show up here. Millennia is an unlockable character, but she's not in this game at all. The time nodes never come back in the series, so they're just gone. Think of this as just an entirely different event that might be going on at the same time, but is definitely in the same world as Kagero Deception 2. That's kind of how you have to think about this entire series. Shit just happens. What I find odd is that it starts off as just kind of a pretty straightforward revenge tale, and then it meanders into just something that doesn't make any sense. And that's probably the best thing I can say about Deception 3. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The gameplay is very simple. You're just wandering through these different castles, setting traps, and basically killing anybody that wanders in. You're never going to fight more than 2 enemies at a time, but those enemies present their own challenges. Some of them are immune to fire, some are immune to electricity, some are immune to cold, some of them are immune to magnets, which is annoying, but still, it makes you think about what weapons you want to bring into it and how you want to set up each one of your traps. You can bring 9 traps into every mission, so you have 3 for ceiling, 3 for the floor, and 3 for the walls. And this is where you need to kind of think about what you want to do here. So you can have a spring trap that throws an enemy into a wall, and then you can drop a giant rock on them. Or you can, spray them with oil and then set them on fire. That's always fun. But it's one of those things where you need to remember just what you're trying to do to these people. Since they all have their own different attacks, some of them are ranged units, some of them are magical, some of the bastards teleport around, which I had hoped was gone, but they still teleport all over the place. It's rather annoying. Most of the characters are pretty straightforward. They're all fairly weak against physical attacks, so if you do something that's going to, hurt them, like drop a rock on them or snag them in a bear trap, it'll usually deal some damage to them. However, you might run into a problem where somebody's immune to arrows. I didn't really find the arrows all that useful in this. I kind of avoided those. I stuck with just the springboard traps, magnets, setting people on fire, and dropping rocks on their head. It's always a good idea to drop a rock on someone's head. That usually deals with them pretty well, or at least takes them down quite a bit. When you bring up the map screen to figure out where the enemies are, you can also look up their character information, and that'll tell you what their strengths and weaknesses are. It's pretty easy to deal with a lot of these guys. The one that I hate the most has got to be the Hell Knight. That character is just stupid. Just really, really stupid. Thankfully, they move very slow, but their attack is just way too dumb for me to really describe in any way. They sprint at you, knock you down, and then they seem to just lock you in place where they can constantly hit you over and over again. It's not really fair. Or at least I didn't think it was very fair, mostly because I kept getting killed by them. Once I figured out how to deal with them is just keep them in one room and then keep something in between you and keep luring them into the same traps so you can deal with them pretty easily that way. The enemies in this are incredibly stupid, so if you bring them into a trap in one room, they're going to pretty much stay that way. Like, they won't realize the traps are there. It's pretty easy to deal with all the enemies here. The part that makes the Hell Knight so goddamn annoying is that they're immune. Once you hit them, they become immune for a little while, so you can't actually hurt them. I should say invulnerable instead of immune. That makes a whole hell of a lot more sense. They're going to be invulnerable from attacks for a while. You still hurt them, but it's only like 1 damage point at a time. If you just keep luring them into a trap, like a very simple trap like the one I have here, you can take them out pretty easily. But man, are they annoying. You will also run into a few enemies that heal themselves. I didn't find them too hard. They're just more of a pain in the ass because you need to, again, lure them into an infinite loop again. It isn't too hard to deal with them, but it's still pretty annoying. If you don't pay attention to what's going on with the different characters, then it can be a real pain in the ass, especially when, you look up somebody and you don't realize that they're immune to fire. That can be a major pain in the ass. I've seen it described, you're setting up a Rube Goldberg device to just constantly kill these people, and that's really what you're doing. You can also throw them into some of the environmental hazards, like you'll see some what do I want to say? You'll see like some giant gears in certain rooms that you can throw people into. There'll be a big fan that you can throw somebody into, and that'll keep dealing damage to them. You can throw them into fires, you can throw them into electric chairs and Iron Maidens, a whole bunch of craziness that's just laying around in these castles for you. I was trying to just do this as quickly as possible, so I kind of avoided a lot of those things. It is a lot of fun to do that, though, and to just see what you can and can't pull off. There are a lot of traps that you can make in this game, and they also throw a lot of just different emblems and other crazy things at you. So it's pretty fun to just see what you can and can't do here. You'll get stuff like a thunder emblem, a fire emblem, a curse emblem, poison emblem, a whole bunch of crazy stuff, and you can usually make something pretty wild. Now, how you end up making everything, that has to do with, the number of people that you kill. For every character that you kill in this game, you get a certain amount of arc that you can use for when you're making new weapons. So you're encouraged to kill everybody in the game, or at least everyone that you can. And yeah, it's fairly easy to do that. The graphics in Deception 3 are pretty much what you would expect from the time period. This came out in 2000, so it's gonna look like a late-era PS1 game, because it is. At least in this game, the characters' mouths move, so that's kind of different. In the first, not in the first game, but in Kagero Deception 2, they were just flat faces, so that was kind of interesting. But yeah, everything looks pretty good. I would say the violence is way more cartoonish than anything else, because you don't see any actual damage on any of the characters. Once you get their health down low enough, they'll start limping a little bit and they'll slow down. When they die, they'll leave like a little pool of blood. But when you're doing all the damage to characters, you don't really see anything. Like, nobody's going to be wandering around with one arm after they get thrown into a chopping blade or something crazy like that. I was having a little bit of trouble with this, trying to line up just all my different attacks at times. That I found just a little bit too annoying for what I wanted to do. It wasn't always a problem, but every once in a while, if you're dealing with sort of a faster moving enemy, it could be a bit of an issue. The cutscenes are all fairly good. Most of them, with the exception of the few at the very beginning, use in-game graphics to deal with everything. So you're just watching the character models move around, you're reading the text on the screen, and that's pretty much about it. There's nothing that's really going to blow you away here. Those couple of opening cutscenes, they were fine, but then you never see anything like that again. It's really strange. Like, this is just an odd game in terms of a lot of different things. The character models all look pretty good. They look like they belong in a world like this, where it is medieval, there's some technology, and, there's a lot of magic going on, so the characters all look about right. The different traps that you can make, those all look pretty cool. I like that it's pretty easy to tell what's going on in the game at times. It didn't seem too dark, so I didn't run into an area where I was like, okay, now I'm just fucked, I can't see what's going on the screen. There is one character that will cast a darkness spell on you, but that's fine. I didn't have a real problem with that. Lining everything up was kind of an issue, but it wasn't too bad. It was one of the reasons I wanted to avoid trying to use all the different environmental stuff, but I think everything looks pretty good. One of the problems is there aren't a whole lot of locations in this game. You're going to be spending a lot of time in like 3 castles, and it's just not all that great. I feel like there is a lot more variety in Kagero, but here it's just a little weird. There are a few endings to this game. The one that I got was strange to say the least. And it made me feel like I missed some stuff when I was going through this, because it's just an odd ending. After you've killed the king, the queen decides that, she wants the core stone from you, and you decide not to give it to her. So then you have to fight the queen and her sort of elite guard. But they don't want to fight in the palace that you're in. They're just sort of like, okay, let's take you to the murder castle so that we can get the stone from you. And so that we can chase you through the murder castle while you're constantly killing us. And we ask you politely not to do that. It's a weird ending. So after you've killed everyone and read their rather ridiculous messages that they leave for you, that's something I should really talk about. No one in this game makes any goddamn sense. When they die, they will talk about other people in the party that you didn't actually know that they were into, unless you went to like their character screen and it specifically mentioned that. It's very weird. You'll also get messages in this game that just don't make any frickin' sense, like what's leading into the chapters. It feels like someone who had a vague understanding of the English language translated everything, and then we're just sort of like, yeah, that was good enough. So here's the ending that I got. The legendary stone, or the core stone, or whatever the hell the queen was looking for, falls into a furnace. Regardless of where you kill the queen, you end up in this room with the furnace. No idea why, but there you are. So that stone falls into the furnace. The queen jumps into it. Nobody bothers to think, they could turn the furnace off, which would be the first thing I would think of. But again, I probably wouldn't be in this situation. I probably would have been one of the people that died right away. But you would think they could just turn the fire off and then just walk in there and pick up the stone. But neither the queen or Rena think about that. Then this lady, Christina, who, by the way, is the lady that kidnapped Rena and her mom and her sister, she comes back and says, hey, we're okay. We don't need to do this anymore. Let's get the hell out of here. So they decide to leave, and then just laying on the floor happens to be the princess, who is also like a secret agent for the queen. At times, I don't understand how or why. She's like 6. It's a very weird setup. They just pick her up and they decide, yeah, let's walk off now. We're good. We don't need to do anything else. And then it just stops. You get a mission cleared sign, and then you get the credits rolling. And if you wait for the credits to be over with, you don't get anything. Or at least I didn't. I know there are more endings to this, but I don't really feel like finding out what they are. So let's wrap this one up. I'm glad I went back and played Deception 3, but I'm not really looking forward to doing it again, or I don't have any motivation to go and play it again, if that makes any sense. I remember playing this game when I was a kid, being really excited for it because I liked Kagero Deception 2, and then I saw this one, I was like, oh, this is Deception 3. Maybe something from the second game will get explained here. That ought to be cool. And then I played it, and I was just really confused. I didn't think too much about it. It was just sort of like, okay, well, they're in a different location now. There are different characters. The time nodes are just gone from existence. So, okay, maybe this is just like the Final Fantasy series, where each game is its own contained story. That's what I had originally thought. And then I played more of it, and I was just sort of like, okay, I like the gameplay, but I don't really care about the story. And I don't care about any of the characters because they're not around long enough for me to really give a shit about. And then they get off-screen to death. And that's kind of the end of it. And there's no, like, satisfying conclusion to killing some of these people. It's just sort of like, okay, and it's over and it's done with. They got their comeuppance, but whatever. And then the ending I got, the character that basically orchestrated my kidnapping at the very beginning of the game leaves with me, and now we're buddies and everything is okay. Deception 3 is a weird game. I don't know what else to say about it that I haven't already said, so I'll just wrap this one up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later.